So this was my solution to the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt. I did not find the treasure, but I'm convinced that I found the blaze, the hiding location, and why it was there. Maybe after listening to this, you'll be convinced as well. The Desert View Watchtower on the Grand Canyon South Rim was designed in the style of ancestral Puebloan buildings of the Four Corners region. It was built in 1932 by Fred Harvey, yes, the original owner of the bracelet that Forrest keeps talking about. You can climb 85 steps to the upper observation deck for a 360-degree view of the canyon, and from these windows you can see all the locations mentioned in Forrest Fenn's poem. We can deduce that if we can see a certain location from the tower, logically we should be able to see the tower from that location. A blaze is a trail marker that identifies the path for the hikers on the trail, and since the tower can be seen from all the locations in the poem, the Desert View Watchtower is the blaze. Let's see how this theory fits with the hints that Forrest has given us over the years. Starting with the bracelet. The famous bracelet that Forrest mentions at every interview, even when the question asked is about a completely different topic. The turquoise beads were discovered at Mesa Verde, made into a bracelet that was then sold to Fred Harvey, who built the Desert View Watchtower. Also, the round tower of Mesa Verde was one of the models used by architect Mary Coulter to design the Desert View Watchtower. The elevation was given as between 5,000 and 10,200 feet. Desert View is right in the middle of that range at around 7,500 feet. Now this hint. If you look at the latitudes on Google Maps, you can do the math and you'll find that the Desert View Watchtower is located at almost exactly 8.5 miles north of Santa Fe. We all thought that the hint of the treasure located at least 300 miles west of Toledo was pretty useless. Well, that's until you do the reverse engineering and look at what's sitting exactly 300 miles east of Desert View at the same latitude. You will find Cerro Toledo, so not the city Toledo but the hill, just north of Santa Fe. And Forrest can cover that distance in about 8 hours, so less than a day's drive from his home in Santa Fe. Once he got there, he says he was able to do 2 trips from his car to the treasure hiding spot in one afternoon, and that he didn't walk more than a few miles that day. That fits with the layout at Desert View. The parking is just a quarter mile from the tower. But see how he's trying to lure us into thinking that he hid the treasure during the afternoon so that we think that it's in a secluded place? No, of course he hid the treasure at night when there's less people around. So that afternoon he did 2 trips just to visit and walk around, that's 1 mile, and then he did another 2 trips at night to hide the chest, another mile, for a total walk that day of less than a few miles. Forrest described what he could see and smell if he was standing next to the treasure. At the Tusayan Museum, not far from the tower, you can see all these plants on a nature trail showing what the ancestral Puebloans collected in the forest for food and medicine. For all those of you who are currently multitasking, Googling to see if the Grand Canyon is part of the Rockies. Now is a good time to address the biggest misdirect of the chase. Forrest says that he often looks up the definition of words just to be sure that he uses the one with the precise meaning. When he says that the treasure is most certainly in the Rocky Mountains, and you look up the definition of most, you realize that it actually means almost. So in fact, what Forrest is telling us is that the treasure is almost certainly in the Rocky Mountains. Now the map. In his second book, Forrest included a map with magnetic lines and this somewhat convoluted sentence. Forrest Fenn's hidden treasure is somewhere to be found within the highlighted region of the Rocky Mountains on this map. Most people will see that the Rocky Mountains look like they've been colored with highlighter pens to reflect the type of land they're on, like national parks, and they will assume that the treasure is somewhere within the colored areas. But if you look up the definition of highlighted, it actually means the palest in color, or something that you draw attention to. Forrest said that the treasure was not in Utah. Okay, but there is a small part of the Rockies in Utah, the Wasatch Range. Now, if you draw the delimitation of this region, then this colorless area would be the highlighted region of the Rocky Mountains on this map. It would also be the region that draws attention because of the words cold, which represents the chest because bronze feels cold, and gold, its content. And you know where Desert View is located on this map? Right next to the treasure chest. And then there's this beauty, the first map, which Forrest probably figured is way too easy, so that's why he created the map with the tricky sentence about the Rocky Mountains. On the first map, there's no mention of the Rockies. It just says that the treasure is hidden somewhere on this map. Forrest often said to ask a child, maybe a child could find the treasure. Well, I'm sure a child could find the treasure pretty fast on this map, right next to Desert View Watchtower. We know that the treasure is not in Utah and that it's in one of 4 states. The clever misdirect about the Rockies had people concluding that if the treasure is not in Utah, then it must be in Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, or New Mexico. In one of 4 states is usually a good way to describe the Four Corners region, which includes Arizona. And let's not forget that the Desert View Watchtower represents buildings of the Four Corners region. For all the searchers who are currently going through withdrawal from searching for the treasure now that it has been found, this is one last chance to return to your favorite activity of searching for the clues. Just press pause, skip the portion where the locations are revealed, and return for the rest of the explanations. We will now look through all the windows in counterclock order, starting with the one facing north. As I have gone alone in there, Cape Solitude, and with my treasures bold, the painted desert with its brilliant and bold colors. I can keep my secret where, those are archaeological sites, and a wink to another one of his books. It could also be in reference of the mid-air collision that claimed the lives of 128 people. And hint of riches new and old, like new gold coins in an antique box or the new tower that looks old. Begin it where warm waters halt. This is the confluence where the warm waters of the Little Colorado River join the cold waters of the Colorado. The confluence holds spiritual and cultural significance for several Native American tribes in the Southwest. And take it in the canyon down, so follow the river into the Grand Canyon that starts at the confluence. Not far, but too far to walk. It would be a long and difficult hike by land, but not too far by boat. Put in below the home of Brown, that's Frank Mason Brown, the president of the rail company that wanted to build a railroad at the bottom of the canyon. He drowned during an expedition about 50 miles upstream, but since his body was never recovered, it's assumed to still be somewhere in the Marble Canyon, his forever home, so we should get on a boat just below Marble Canyon. From there, it's no place for the meek. If it's no place for the meek, it would be a place for its contrary. That's Coulter, as in Mary Jane Coulter, the architect of the Desert View Watchtower. Also, after the confluence, the powerful rapids would be for courageous people only, not the timid. The end is ever drawing nigh. That's the Unker Delta, the largest archaeological site that can be visited in the Grand Canyon. The river makes 2 sharp bends, so as seen from a raft it looks like the end of the river is approaching because it keeps turning and you see a wall right in front of you. You can see this in Google Maps Street View, it's pretty cool. There'll be no paddle up your creek. That's the Neville's Rapid. Norman Neville's was the first to offer river tours on his paddle boat. Just heavy loads and water high. The Hans Rapid, described as multiple large rocks, constrict a channel and form powerful hydraulics. If you've been wise and found the blaze, the Desert View Watchtower is the blaze, but there's also a salute to the pioneers who blazed the trail, Brown, Coulter, Neville, and Hans, historical figures of the Grand Canyon. Look quickly down your quest to cease. If you look straight ahead, you won't see it. You need to get real close to the window and look down as close as possible to the tower, and that's when you'll see the ruin in the shape of a horseshoe with a woodpile inside. But tarry scant from Marvel Gaze. Tarry scant would mean lacking asphalt, and Marvel Gaze is the scenic view watchtower which is surrounded by paved walkways except for the mound in the back where you can find the ruin. Just take the chest and go in peace, so we should be able to pick up the treasure in the ruin about 12 feet from the blaze. So why is it that I must go, the public restrooms, Forrest has a sense of humor, and leave my trove for all to seek? A trove is a store with delightful things, and from this window you can see the trading post, the gift shop, and the snack bar. The answer I already know, the information plaza. I've done it tired and now I'm weak, the Desert View campground. So hear me all and listen good. The echo cliffs. Listen good is the echo responding to hear me in the sense that they both mean the same thing. Your effort will be worth the cold. It's the treasure chest because bronze feels cold, and we're guessing that it will require some effort. If you are brave, you can see Navajo Mountain and Comanche Point. And in the wood, Cedar Mountain. I give you title to the gold. Gold Hill is visible from the next window. And after completing a full circle, seeing all the locations in the poem, and arriving back at the window where we started, we understand why Forrest quoted this poem. At the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Now let's get back to the interesting part of searching for the chest. We can see the second meaning of these lines. If you are brave, the Desert View Watchtower was also called the Indian Tower, and in the wood would be the woodpile in the ruin. I give you title to the gold, we would become owners of the chest. This looks a lot like the setting of a story Forrest told us about Pedro who wanted to hide this chest. So he found an empty room where the roof had fallen in. He hides it under some latilla, some timbers, and puts some rocks around it. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Like, this is a make-believe ruin replica and we're going to be searching for a real treasure. Well, the lockbox that Forrest used as a treasure chest just happens to be from the exact same period as the ancestral pueblos represented by the Desert View Watchtower, so it would make plenty of sense to find something from the same period if we search here. At this point, consider this subtle hint when Forrest quotes Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge, and he deliberately misspells knowledge. This is to tell us that he personally leans more towards imagination, and this is important to know to understand and accept the rest of the solution. Forrest wanted us to experience the thrill of finding an artifact in a ruin, but he couldn't have us digging up a real ruin, therefore the ruin replica. He also had a great time finding amusing ways to give hints in his books. Some are really clever. But back to searching for the treasure. Since this is a ruin, I looked at what I learned at the nearby museum about ancestral Pueblo buildings. A message for the younger searchers. When you visit a place, it's a good idea to read the signs. It might seem boring, but the information that you can learn on signs can be very useful when you're searching for a treasure. For this search, most of the information I needed to solve the clues I found in plain view written on signs. I learned that in ancestral pueblos there's a small hole on the floor of the kiva room called a sipapu. It symbolizes the portal through which their ancient ancestors first emerged to enter the present world. The original sipapu is said to be located in the Grand Canyon, so it's like a portal to the underworld. Now think about these two stories. Forrest tells us that we first had the idea to hide a treasure when he was told, well, you can't take it with you, which got him thinking if maybe he could. So if he places a chest just at the entrance of the portal to the underworld and dies right on top of it, he could just pick it up and go in peace, taking the chest with him. The other story is when he said that if he got sick again and knew that he was dying, he wished that he could go back to the place where he hid the chest and throw himself over it, and one day someone would find his bones and would be welcome to rob his grave. Notice how he doesn't clearly mention that that person would also find the chest, since he will have taken it with him. We can see a more dramatic interpretation of these lines of the poem. Look quickly down your quest to cease as your quest to cease living, ending his life if he got terminally ill like his father did. Just take the chest and go in peace would mean die and bring the chest into the underworld. These lines in the poem were not instructions for us, but for himself. Now isn't this plan absolutely brilliant? But wait, it gets better. Since you're in a portal to another world, you're no longer in a national park. In fact, you're no longer in the USA or any other country, meaning you just got rid of any possible legal and tax issues. This is pure genius. This is so clever that even Forrest Fenn himself wishes that he had thought about that one. Maybe he did. At least he could claim that this was also his idea all along since the finder isn't talking. My message to you, Mr. Fenn, thank you so much for this absolutely thrilling experience. I felt so clever anytime I would solve a clue, understand a hint, and I really enjoyed the adventure of hiking on and off the trails, the magic of searching for a real treasure, and I learned so much about the history of the Grand Canyon and its people, so thank you so much. Now that we're all looking for our next adventure, I was wondering, will you be giving out any hints or clues on where we can find the bells that you buried? Please? For all the searchers out there who need some kind of closure, you can use this solution as the most probable one until a more realer one comes along. If you enjoyed this docufiction, were captivated to the point of wondering if this could be the real solution, and are feeling compelled to show your support for a creative writer, you could make a small contribution to my GoFundMe. Half the proceeds will be donated to the Grand Canyon Conservancy. Thank you. Okay, off to the next adventure. Maybe I'll see you on the trails or in the wood. Just in case you're wondering, of course I searched there. This part of the story is real. I had found the blaze in November 2018, but on that trip didn't search in the right hiding location. I eventually figured out that it would be under the woodpile, so returned in May 2019 to search there. During the day, I could evaluate the task, but had to wait for nighttime to do the searching. Every night I had to move the entire woodpile out of the way, search, then put everything back in place before dawn. Notice how the woodpiles look different from one day to the other. In front of the woodpile, just outside of the ruined horseshoe, it's pure rock. You couldn't even insert a needle in the ground, so for sure there's nothing underneath there. Once you've piled the wood out of the way, underneath there's a tarp, and below that it's a mix of old logs, branches, wood chips, sand, dirt, rocks, all compacted together. You're not supposed to dig with a shovel in the national park, and I'm sure Forrest would not have wanted us to do that, but this is a pile of debris, not the soil of the park, and a shovel would not be the best tool to move logs and branches anyways. So you're kind of sitting in a huge sandbox, peeling away layers, sifting through dirt. On the first night, I found a metal rod about 3 feet long. I figured that Forrest Fenn had left this for us to find so that we would know to poke the ground, and it was maybe even an indication of how deep we had to search. Well, I searched there for many hours for 4 nights, but I could not find the treasure. Finally, I had to contemplate the possibility that the metal rod had been left there not by Forrest, but by another searcher, the finder. Still, I couldn't get it out of my mind. All the clues and hints in the books pointed to that location. So I convinced a friend to come help me search, and our flights were booked for the first week of April. But because of the pandemic, our trip was cancelled. I was still waiting for the border to reopen to reschedule our flights when I received the email that stabbed me in the heart. The treasure had been found. So my message to the finder, congratulations. This is my sportsmanship spirit talking. But my competitive spirit would really like to know, how many clues did you find? How many hints did you understand? How long did it take you to figure out the blaze, the location, and mostly, when exactly did you retrieve the chest? Desert View was closed because of the pandemic, so it would have been a good time to search undisturbed. Or maybe you found it some time ago but just waited for the 10-year anniversary to announce it. I would certainly prefer that version of the story because I can't believe I was searching right next to it and didn't find it. If you wish to make an anonymous donation to my GoFundMe, it's for someone hit hard by the pandemic who lost a lot of gold because their trip was canceled. I wish GoFundMe accepted donations in gold coins or nugget because I would have loved to have even just a little piece of Forrest Fenn's gold as a keepsake. In the remote possibility that you found the chest somewhere else, would it be possible to post a photo of the chest on Google Maps at the location where you found it so that hundreds of thousands of searchers around the world can get closure? Or keep searching on the map for your photo. Thanks and congratulations again.